go time.
The boys are back. That's right, Florida Man Sports is here with another exciting episode. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. This is Florida Man Sports.
Welcome back, Florida Man Sports.
Let's go.
Now, on today's episode, of course, we discuss open season, NFL free agency. There were a lot of teams that went ahead and traded away their Pro Bowl talent like DK Metcalf, Geno Smith. Other teams re-signed that talent like Myles Garrett. But, Chris, this is FM Sports, so we have to start with our Florida team. So, Chris, let's begin with Jacksonville Jaguars. On Jacksonville, did they do what they needed to do, which you'll love to hear me say, or it was an epic failure?
Yeah, absolutely. Florida Man Sports, we are streaming it on major platforms, so please like, share, and subscribe. We are streaming everywhere you want to listen to. And Johnny Cinco, let's be very clear about something. Free agency doesn't mean that you're going to the Super Bowl, right? It doesn't define your season per se.
Okay.
Look back to the Buffalo Bills. We talked about earlier how they didn't do anything the previous year, and then they had a really good playoff run until they met the Chiefs. But it's very important, right? It's very important for us because we have teams that need to get on the right foot, if you will. And so let's start with Jacksonville, where we know last episode we talked about all the talent that was lost. I'm going to be very short and brief, Cinco. I'm very disappointed. Either this GM knows way more than we do, like he claims that he does. He's an analytical person. He signs people based on different metrics that I clearly don't understand. But there's nothing for me to be excited about when I look at who we signed here in Jacksonville. So far, I give it a D. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Jacksonville, we addressed the needs that we hoped they filled. Mainly for me, it was obviously their wide receiver position. If you're going to go ahead and pay your quarterback all the money, and you're going to go ahead and focus on that, you have to give him premier talent. We talked about it. Gabe Davis has proven is not it. You had hoped he was. He's not. Obviously, their rookie last year went ahead and showed that he has some flashes he can be, but you have to give him some help. So I had hoped with some of the premier names that we've talked about, they were going to go after it. Instead, they go after Dyami Brown. Dyami Brown, nobody's ever heard of. Chris, you never heard of him because he averages less than one catch per game, and he averages 12.5 yards per game in 63 career games, guys. He's not the guy. Not only is he not the guy, you paid him $10 million to be not the guy. How you pay someone who hasn't proven anything, $10 million for any year, is beyond me. But hey, Chris, the GM knows all. This GM knows more than anyone because he's, like you said, an analytical mind. He's a beautiful mind. He knows exactly what's going to happen. He got his chalkboard and he wrote it all down. And he said, Dyami Brown's going to be dynamic because I like his name. He must be it. So I feel this is a tremendous failure by Jacksonville. Of course, those other names they picked up from, but we're focused on that one particular thing because we both said receiver position.
Yeah, and to your point, Johnny, also to cover just everything, because obviously the big three here was Patrick McCary. He signed that 3-year, $37 million deal because we had a hole at right guard. So I understand that.
Yes.
But it's still, the guy can defend the pass. He can't defend the run. We know that. Then you've got Jordan Lewis at cornerback, a 3-year, $30 million deal when you could have brought back Andre Sisco, who signed with the Jets on a 1-year, $10 million deal. And then just to put a bow on it, Johnny, talking about the wide receiver position, let me ask you a question. So is this the guy that is supposed to be where Gabe Davis is going to be? Are they going to put Gabe Davis on the outside? Or are they going to try to put him on the outside next to Thomas Jr., who we talked about last episode? He could have a sophomore slump if you don't surround him with talent.
I don't know what you're going to do with this with Brown. Brown, you're saying like, oh, is he going to be a slot? Is he going to be in the end here?
That's what I'm saying.
He hasn't proven anything. I would imagine that Gabe Davis, because you paid him the money, is on the end. So you're going to have obviously Gabe Davis on the end, and you're going to hope that Dyami Brown's on the slot. I don't know. This guy hasn't proven anything. I don't know how he's even a starter. He's going to be a starter in the NFL. Instead, you gave this guy $10 million based off a couple of games in the playoffs. That was his whole career. Last season, a couple of games in the playoffs with the Commanders. He had some good games. That's it. Regular season, no show. So I don't understand it, Chris. Tremendously disappointed in Jacksonville Jaguars.
And then they signed, just to kind of put a bow on free agency so far for Jacksonville, they signed not one but two tight ends, when Strange had a great breakout season last year. So again, a lot of head scratching, I think, is a consensus for Florida Man Sports.
Absolutely.
Jesus.
Let's move on, Chris, to the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins were cash strapped. We were concerned over if they were able to do anything, and they actually made some surprising moves. Chris, what do you think about Miami?
Well, first thing I want to say is that it's clear that Miami Dolphins listen to Florida Man Sports, and because first things first, right, today, Tyrell Dotson agreeing to a 2-year deal. That's the guy that I said last episode from Seattle that comes back. But, last week, Johnny, we were I was very hard on Miami. What are you going to do with the limited cash that you have? And kudos to Miami. They've done, to Johnny's point, what they've needed to do. They've brought back on small contracts their linebackers, a couple of one-year deals. And then they also addressed the offensive line with the player that Johnny here last episode said that they would go with. So again, kudos all around. Yep. But, overall, I got to give them a solid BB plus because they're doing the best with what they got. What do you think?
I think this is a team that had nothing to work with and maximize that potential compared to what Jacksonville had all the money and just went ahead and dropped the ball, in my opinion. But Miami went ahead and picked up they revamped some of the offensive line. They need to protect Tua, outstanding, couple safeties, but they addressed their backup, which when I originally saw it, Chris, I thought it was Russell Wilson. I got a little excited, like Zach Wilson. I'm not going to hype up Zach Wilson. Has his flashes as a top guy, but still.
What do you think about that, though? What do you? Because let's be real, Tua's only played one complete season, so he is the next man up. Are you okay with that for Miami?
Listen, at the end of the day, what we have seen over the last few years, Baker, top pick, and they had written him off, comes back, kills it. Sam Darnold, same thing, comes back, kills it. Now is it Zach Wilson's turn? If Tua gets injured and he has his shot, can he resurrect his career? It should be interesting, but hey, I'm not mad at Miami for taking the shot.
I agree.
I agree. Really like the move with their number 3, the wide receiver, Nick Westbrook. I guess it's Aheen. It's a 2-year, $6.5 million deal, guys. This is what we're referencing, Chris, is that they went ahead and pick up kind of a nobody type of receiver, but still has this better stats than Brown and what Jacksonville just went and signed.
100%.
They signed Jacksonville signed Brown for $10 million. They signed this kid for essentially $3 million. $3 million a deal for a 27-year-old wide receiver that has better numbers than Jacksonville. What is Jacksonville doing? I know we're focused on Miami, but that's what disappoints me is that they should have picked up that kid Brown for these type of numbers. Instead, they overpay for mediocrity, which I said they needed to overpay for premier talent because Jacksonville needs to prove themselves. Instead, they went ahead with this route. I don't get it, Chris, do you?
No, and let's going back to Miami. Let's give him their kudos with Nick Westbrook because he did have those like 3 or 4 games where he had back-to-back touchdowns, which is what made him a big known name in fantasy world anyway. And Johnny, does this mean, you talked about in the NFL draft, Cheetah being traded. I almost feel like they're kind of preparing by bringing in this guy, not because he's going to replace Cheetah per se, but because he's going to come in here and be a versatile player that can play in the middle, can play on the right, as we saw with the Titans last year. So my 2-part question. 1, do you think that that's going to be the case? And then the second part, is it okay then, or do you agree? I said B for Miami as far as a grade overall. Do you agree with that? What do you give them?
100%. Miami did the best they could have possibly done under the circumstances. Yeah. So I'm mad at that. I still stand by Hill possibly getting traded. If they don't trade him, then they're in the draft. They're going to ride it out with him. But as soon as the season starts going the way you don't expect it, I see Hill being moved on from there. But ultimately, well done, Miami. Let's move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay Buccaneers went ahead and made some moves that we expected and some moves that maybe we didn't expect. Overall, what do you think about our Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the moves they made?
Listen, if anybody in the Florida teams, woke up on the right side of the bed this morning, it is the Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan base. You've got Godwin, who's back. You've got Levante David, who's back. And then let's not forget, and let's give the flowers to Ben Bredeson because he completes that offensive line that had so much success last year in the running and passing game. So the Bucs are back, man. I'm so excited. Go ahead. What are you thinking?
No, I'm giving you props because ultimately you did call David to come back, Godwin get re-signed. The thing is that Godwin, I appreciate the fact that Tampa Bay always goes ahead and shows loyalty to their players. Absolutely. Godwin, who's often injured, is coming off another season-ending injury, and still he got paid well. Still a bargain if you get the Godwin that we expect to get back. But we don't know because, your greatest ability is availability. So we're hoping he remains that way. But well done to Tampa to going ahead and re-signing some of those players. But let's talk about the players that, they didn't re-sign, but they signed. Chris, what do you think about that?
Absolutely. So we brought back Anthony Nelson, which is something that last week I said we needed to do to bring back continuity in that defense. And we're going to talk a lot about Reddick, which is the big free agent signing for the Bucs, but also the sneaky pick, Johnny, punter Riley Dixon. We struggled with multiple punters last year, so kudos to Jason Light for addressing needs that needed to be addressed before the draft. And then to Reddick, Garrett was the big one that we all thought was a possibility to many teams. It was complete smoke and mirrors. The guy just wanted the bag. Respect for him getting paid, Johnny. And you and I are going to have a disagreement on this probably, and that's okay. I like Reddick over every other option that was out there. I like that better than Chase Young. He's just a name for me. I like that better than Bosa because Bosa has been injured year after year. Here's a guy who didn't get the money that he wanted with the Jets. He sat out. He's 30 years young because he still has some freshness there, not playing a full season. And he's on that 1-year deal, Johnny, that you always talk about so much. So I'm happy about it. I think it's a great move. I think it's a guy that can get you double-digit sacks. And if he doesn't, you don't got to worry about it the following year. So I'm so excited if you're a Bucs fan. I'm so excited about this offseason for the Bucs. What are your thoughts on the big one on Reddick?
Well, Reddick, I'm not a fan of. Besides the fact that he's coming from the Jets and coming from the Jets, most players coming from the Jets don't really.
We know how you feel about the Jets.
But listen, the dude is a toxic player. And I know that you don't necessarily agree with that. You think there's only one. Like, for him to go into the Jets, you remember the Jets were favorites going into last season. Ended up being a joke. But even knowing that he didn't care, he wasn't going to help the team, he was going to sit out, he was going to pull a Le'Veon Bell and just be like, I'm not playing. You got to pay me, pay me. By the time he came back, it was too late for the Jets. The season was over. So that type of selfishness, I don't like in the locker room presence. This guy's coming in as the essentially premier defensive player. Yes, you can argue, of course, that Davis is going to go ahead and keep him in line. I don't see that anybody can. But I do like the fact that it's a 1-year deal. So it's a prove-it deal. If he wants the contract from another team next year, this is the last shot for a decent contract, he has to perform this year. So I don't like the player, but the contract is set up for Tampa to go ahead and be like, all right, well, it's simple. You're going to get a 1-year deal. If you want to go ahead and be that same guy you were at the Jets, then it didn't work out and you're done. We don't have to deal with you guys again. But I'm hoping that Reddick actually proves me wrong, that he's not the toxic player that I think he is, and he brings success to Tampa, Cris. But outside of that, Cris, obviously we talked about our Florida teams, and we're pretty excited about what Tampa and Miami have done, disappointed in Jacksonville. But ultimately, Cris, give me a couple teams outside the state of Florida that greatly improve their Super Bowl chances with the moves they made.
Why do you have to put that asterisk of improving their Super Bowl chances? Okay, why are you doing that? It's almost like you know what I'm going to say and you're trying to bait me. I hate this. No, I won't tell you Super Bowl, Johnny, because only 2 teams can make it to the Super Bowl. But I will tell you. I will tell you.
Answer your own.
I will tell you 2 teams that I think significantly improved their teams, the dynamic of the team, and if you could please just not be biased when I say this.
I'm biased. Okay.
The New York Jets.
Okay.
Man, shout out to the Jets. Mm-hmm. For a first-time coach, you give him Justin Fields, who is on a 2-year deal.
You love that quarterback so much.
He's on a 2-year deal. He gets the fresh start that he never got in Pittsburgh. It was smoke and mirrors in Pittsburgh. When you thought he was going to get a fresh deal, he didn't get one, a fresh start, And so he gets it here with the Jets. And you know what? He gets surrounded by young talent. I talked about it a little bit earlier. Andre Sisco, he's got a 1-year, $10 million deal on defense. That's going to be this year's guy. Next year, he's going to get the bag. Watch. I'm professing it right now. And then they brought back Jamie Sherwood, brought back their own captain, their linebacker, who's, I think, 25 years old. So just excellent job by the Jets. They're building a team that can surprise a lot of people. They're building a team, Johnny, that reminds me a lot of the Washington Redskins, Washington Commanders of last year, except that they don't have Jaden Daniels. They've got Justin Fields.
Anyone that's good.
You like how I doubled down and steered into that skid?
No, but I like a true politician that you are, I'm not going to answer the question you ask. I'm going to ask my own question and answer that one.
Because you're changing it. The Super Bowl.
Well done. It didn't change anything.
Ah, yes, you did, dude.
It's
whatever, bro. Whatever.
At the end of the day, you've got to be kidding me. The Jets are not even going to win the AFC East. They're going to be in last place in the AFC East. They're not going to finish with a better record than the Bills. They're not going to finish a better record than, obviously, even the Patriots.
They will. Patriots, yeah.
No.
Patriots. No, a terrible offseason.
I disagree. So the fact that you're in love with Justin Fields just kind of has you kind of going, well, you won. You did a great job. No, Justin Fields, I don't get it. He did get a shot. He wasn't supposed to with Russell Wilson, but he was injured, got a shot, and proved he cannot throw the ball. Yes, he can run. He can't throw the ball. So I'm sorry. He got his chances. I don't know what you see, Cris, in Justin Fields that most of us don't see. You see,
Coach Aaron Glenn, we both see it.
So dude's not an accurate quarterback. He can run, and when he panics, he runs, and that combination usually doesn't work out. I've seen it work out for Lamar Jackson. That's about it. But ultimately, not going to get you the Super Bowl that we all hope you're going to get. So I don't like the move with the New Jersey Jets. I'm sorry.
Well, John, I'll ask you the question that was supposed to be asked in this. Which two teams won the offseason, Johnny. Which one do you have?
Well, the question isn't winning the offseason. I'll ask you that question later. The question was, which two teams made some moves that greatly improved their chances to win it all?
The Jets.
So for me, it's the only team that's in New York. That's the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills made some monster moves. Now, Joey Bosa, for one, going in there, the edge rusher that's going to go have a premier edge rusher on a 1-year deal is outstanding. Not to mention the fact they went ahead and addressed the real sleeper that's going to kill it next year in your fantasy football league. It's Joshua Palmer. Josh Palmer out of the Chargers is an outstanding talent. They're going to go ahead and bring him on there. I'm telling you right now, Josh Palmer, who's an outstanding number 5 from the Chargers there, is going to do well match with Allen. So Palmer, Bosa, those two, they've made some other moves as well, but those two moves I'm really impressed with. Those two are going to address some needs. And Buffalo Bills only lost this year because of the refs. We all saw the game here. So you just take that same team, add 2 premier talents to that offense and defense. Come on.
So if I may, you're saying, I feel like Johnny, if you listen to previous episodes, and again, Florida Man Sports, we're streaming on all platforms, I feel like Johnny always gets in love with like names, right? Chase Young, oh my God, it's just a name. And here you got Bosa.
I mentioned Chase Young one time.
And here you got Bosa, people don't forget. And in the last 3 years, Bosa has played 28 games, has gotten 14 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
In the last 3 years, Reddick has played 44 games and has gotten 28 sacks.
How many years?
On top of, we're talking about 4-year comparisons.
Uh-huh.
On top of in the year that he set out. And so the point being is, and by the way, besides sitting out, Reddick played every single game. And so,
he played every single game.
So again, he is stuck now with the Bills and with the name in Bosa. And then going back to Palmer, folks, again, those of you who like fantasy football like we do, didn't you hear that like the year before that? And the year before, I feel like Palmer has been around for so many years now, and we've always heard this. He's a sleeper. Before it was, he's a sleeper behind Allen. He's a sleeper behind, remember that? We had Keenan Allen because he was on that team. And now, once again,
back, they were more than Allen.
And now, once again, Palmer's now in a fantasy guy to look out for. Look, all I'll say is this. Who got traded last year to the Bills? Cooper. And how did that work out?
That's not.
It doesn't guarantee. It doesn't guarantee fantasy stats, Johnny. That's all I'm saying.
Palmer is in his prime. Cooper is past his prime. He was past his prime when it happened. When the trade was done, I'm like, great trade for the Browns to get some draft picks for that old guy.
Time and time again.
You were so
I've heard it time and time again.
Yeah, from me.
And it hasn't materialized.
Actually, he has. Palmer has been outstanding. A couple of injuries set back him a little bit, but ultimately, Palmer in Buffalo is going to be a pick. It's going to be a pick, 3rd or 4th round fantasy-wise. I'm getting ahead of myself, but ultimately, it's going to be an standing move by Buffalo. Can't wait.
6th, 7th round pick. Don't drink Kool-Aid. Let me give you another team since you want to bring up the Bills, low fruit Johnny. I'm going to have to give you a team that you have to agree with me on this. You have to. You have to.
I'm sure
that won the offseason.
Now they won the offseason?
Okay. Not one, but that did well this offseason through free agency, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. And I hate to say this. I really do. I genuinely do.
All right.
But they franchised Trey Smith. They restructured the contracts of Mahomes and to get to the cap space that they need. So kudos for them for doing that. But then they re-signed Hollywood Brown, who is a system wide receiver. He had success with the Chiefs.
Hollywood Brown is outstanding.
Yeah. No, he's not outstanding. He's good with the Chiefs. And so it's moves like that you got to give them credit for. And then the sleeper for me, Johnny, talking about fantasy value, Elijah Mitchell, the running back for San Francisco. This is a kid who's still fresh, who's still young, who's still entering his prime. And the Chiefs just find a way to grab these type of players. Look out for him this coming season, talking about sleeper picks, because Elijah Mitchell can be a starter in this league. He has shown us that he can do that. He's just been playing second fiddle. No, he has, because of all the predominant names in San Francisco. So for me, another team that did well this offseason, big shout out, big kudos, unfortunately, Johnny, to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Elijah Mitchell is a throwaway. This is a team that has Perrine, that has Hunt, that has Pacheco. They don't. Let's get another.
Hunt's not available this year.
Let's get another. He's not available this year. Let's get another.
They're not signing this year.
That hasn't been necessarily announced yet. They didn't have him. They brought him on there, and still, the point is, this is a team stacked with running backs. I know I'm still missing. I'm pretty sure one other running back that's on this team, and you bring in Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell doesn't matter. He's not going to make an impact on this team. Now, you reference all the other names. I'm like, Kansas City Chiefs. I don't. You got to where you were because for whatever reason the NFL wanted you there. I mentioned obviously last year that if you just flipped their one score wins to losses, they're under 500 team, and we saw with the refs that 12th man for the Kansas City win and helped them ensure they got to where they were. But this team wasn't good enough when they actually officiated a game the way it was supposed to be officiated in the Super Bowl. They got blown out completely. And that was a fairly officiated game. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about Kansas City winning anything else here. I think the other team that really improved their chances, I think, not Kansas City, Chris, but actually the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers went ahead and got probably the best receiver available. It wasn't even really available. They traded for the best receiver in DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is a beast. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have not had a receiver like this since Hines Ward. We saw how that worked out for them. So ultimately, that paired with whoever it's going to be. And I know you're going to go ahead and be like, well, who's the quarterback? It's clear that with the Steelers, it's going to be one of two, Chris. Very clear, Chris. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers or it's going to be Russell Wilson. Those are the two guys. You
had an opportunity to pick a different team and you stuck with the Steelers. You had an opportunity to pick a different team.
Whoever's throwing them the ball, one of those two guys, DK Metcalf, is going to improve this offense tremendously.
How did the Steelers win, in your opinion, that you have them on a team where they don't even have a quarterback right now?
I already addressed that.
No, seriously, nobody understood. How is that possible, Johnny? Okay. Just because of Metcalf? Because they have a great coach? You got to have a quarterback. And the
two options they have are good options that's going to greatly improve this team.
Look, if it's between both of them, it's Russell Wilson. Don't overthink this one. At the end of the day, you're talking about a guy who already knows the system. You're talking about a guy who knows Metcalf. You're talking about a guy who will actually give you 2 full 3 years, maybe even if he wants to, whereas Rodgers is done. He's a one-and-done deal. Last year, you saw him running around hobbling. Maybe he got a little healthier, maybe because of the time of healing, if it's working. But no, I say you go with the clear pick, Russell Wilson.
No, I think between those two guys here, as big of a fan as I am as Russell Wilson, I think that we already have seen what this offense looks like under Russell Wilson. And what it looks like, it's simple. You can win against bad teams. You can't win against good teams. And that's been established still. Even though Russ knows DK, it doesn't matter. I'd rather go ahead and take my chances with something I haven't seen yet with Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers than something I've already seen and saw that it cannot succeed against good teams. So I disagree in that. Let's go ahead and see what Aaron Rodgers looks like under Tomlin, who's an outstanding coach, probably the best coach in football right now. I'd like to see that.
So, but Johnny, again, I got to disagree, bro. Look, you just talked about how last year they weren't doing well. Well, that's only they had Pickens. That's it. Now they have Metcalf. They literally addressed the problem that they had. They showed by them getting him, they proved that the problem wasn't Wilson necessarily. It was that they were an offense that was stagnant, that couldn't go beyond Pickens. So if they address the situation, why would you not bring Russell Wilson back? Well, that doesn't make, you get what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. They literally addressed the problem, so why would you not?
Well, the issue with Russell Wilson used to be a quarterback that can run. He can't run any longer, so you have a 5'9", 5'10" quarterback. Offensive line isn't the worst, but not the best. It still has to be someone that can't run. So Justin Fields can run, can't throw. Russell Wilson can sometimes throw, can't run. So I'd rather take my chances with a quarterback that can't really run.
Well, Rodgers can't run? I was saying, Rodgers can't
run, but is tall, because obviously not going to have an issue seeing over the lineman, and can still sling that rock. So he can still throw. And this guy's, listen, much as I like to dog Aaron Rodgers, the guy's mind is outstanding. Yes, he's a hippie. But I'd like to see what he can do in Pittsburgh. I just think that's going to give you your best option to win compared to Russell Wilson.
Let me throw this curveball because this is Florida Man Sports, but just because we're talking about it and obviously this is still NFL talk. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't find a home here, I said this a couple weeks ago that he is not going to be playing this season for a team. I mean, do you have another team if it's not?
I don't see him. Remember, I talked about the Giants. I talked about that's still a possibility. So it's going to be simple. It's going to be down to the Giants or Steelers. The Giants, not so much anymore. Because I don't know if he's going to want to come back just to play. He wants to be in contention.
Right.
So the Steelers are a team that will contend.
Oh, yeah.
The Giants, not so much. Everything I've read about is that I think Amari Toomer, former Giant great, talked about how players are avoiding the Giants because they see a sinking ship. They don't want to deal with this team. They don't want to deal with the nonsense. So do I want to see, is Aaron Rodgers going to go ahead and come back to go ahead and play them? So I think if he doesn't sign with the Steelers, even though the Giants may want him, I see him doing maybe what you alluded to a few weeks ago, if not a few months ago, that he's going to retire.
Yeah, there you go.
So I don't know, Chris, but ultimately we've talked about a couple of different teams. Now the question lies, Chris. Now, sir, who won free agency? Out of every Florida football team, every team in the nation, everyone. Don't just give me who won in Florida. Give me everyone who won free agency.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I know that you get it, right? Florida Man Sports, Florida Man Perspective. And so if you're not a fan of the Florida teams and you're still listening, you can dog me all you want on this. These are just facts, baby. Look no further than the Tampa Bay Bucs. The Tampa Bay Bucs have won, in my opinion, so far, NFL free agency in totality. And here's why, Johnny. It's not just about the free agents that you bring in. We talked about Reddick. We talked about the punter from Denver. It's about your own team when you can't bring in your talent, when you can't get that homegrown discount, right? That everybody said that we weren't going to be able to get with Godwin. So if you look at the totality of it, the Tampa Bay Bucs have won free agency so far. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to win the Super Bowl, because the Bills showed us the previous year, again, that just because you don't do anything during the offseason, you can still make a playoff run. So it's gonna depend what happens in the regular season. Can we stay healthy? But in my opinion, Johnny, it's the Bucs, because now with a strong draft and you stay healthy, you're going to have a long playoff run. So for me, it's the Bucs.
I don't know if you can win free agency by re-signing some of your own players, and then the player that you signed, the biggest player that you signed, is a questionable locker room presence. So because you have that big question mark there, that creates an issue. I don't know how you win it. For me, it's clear the Buffalo Bills won free agency. They picked up one of the premier edge rushers without the locker room question marks there. And you also go ahead and pick up Joshua Palmer. Not to mention that you picked up, actually retained your edge rusher in Greg Rousseau. Your Shakir, you re-signed. Yeah. Linebackers, Bernard Ferguson there. You picked up a couple running backs there where you re-signed Ty Johnson and Darrington Evans. Guys, Buffalo Bills were already a great team that just got that much better. So I don't know, Cris, as much as Tampa has the potential to go ahead and really just take it to the next level. They solidified, I feel, obviously the NFC South, something they've done year after year. But did they really make that jump to get themselves into the NFC Championship, to potentially get into the Super Bowl? I don't know, because of that toxic element in Reddick. So I don't know.
You went with the team in the Bills, Johnny, who you got Joey. I hate to say it, but the fact is he won't play more than 8 games. Bosa.
We'll see. And
now we'll see. It's proven there. And then you got to remember that they lost Von Miller. So it's not like they kept Von Miller and Joey Bosa. So I don't know.
Okay. Von Miller was past his prime.
This is why
picked up
still
player
good season last year. And still why I feel like, once again, you're just going after the names. That's why I feel like you're stuck on that. And I guess we'll have to see, because again, you signed those type of players doesn't mean that you're going to have a successful season.
If Joey Bosa signed with Tampa Bay, you're telling me you wouldn't feel better about Joey Bosa than
100%. 100%.
Insane.
120%, because at the end of the day, Johnny, what was the Achilles heel for the Bucs last season? Staying healthy. Oh, bring on Joey Bosa. No.
Secondary.
No. Again, staying healthy. Defense depleted.
Secondary wasn't good.
Call it what you will. Listen, folks, Florida Man Sports here. Johnny Cinco, it's clear that you can see by this episode that for our Florida teams with free agency, it's still going on. It hasn't stopped yet.
Correct.
So next week, things can change. But any last words for our Florida teams?
No, just completely disappointed in Jacksonville, but we'll see. Remember, we talked about this with Jacksonville. It's either going to be tremendous success or an epic failure. I think where you see where FM Sports sees the Jacksonville Jaguars at.
And by all means, Jacksonville, prove us wrong. Maybe next week we talk your praises like we did for Miami last week versus this week. At any rate, thanks for listening. He's Johnny. I'm Christian. We're out, y'all.
Later, guys.